because I went to online meetings and the 164 and beyond. She runs a ladies line by line big book study, and it has totally enhanced my AA program that I'm able to pass along to everyone else, all the other women that I help. And it's just truly incredible. And I would like to welcome Kimberlia M from Vancouver, BC.
Hi, thank you so much, Kelly. It is such a pleasure and an honor to be here with you today. My name is Kimberlea, and I am an alcoholic. And it's a beautiful day here in Vancouver, British Columbia, bright and early, 9 a.m. When I was asked to speak here, I was absolutely thrilled with the options. And I saw that they had put chapter 5 and 6 together. And I was like, oh, gosh. That's right up my alley. Let me talk about steps 3 through 11. I'm like, that got just me tickled. So I'm so happy to be here. I'm like, wow. I'm like, that's a lot to put into an hour, but let's do it. If I pull out my big book and I show you that these are those 2 chapters, and it's probably the smallest portion of the book. It's, I think, 30 or 31 pages. But you can see from my book, that's the part of the book that is absolutely falling apart. There's an actual bend in my book at that place. And I can tell you, I have walked hundreds of women through this book. And now I'm doing a co-ed study as well. So now we've added some men in the mix. And anyone who's gotten past this part of the book and into these 31 pages is typically still sober. I lose some of them about 5 pages in when we start page 4 or start step 4. And those people, when they leave at that point, they're either still drinking or they've passed away. And that's the sad fact about our disease. But everybody who's gotten through these chapters is still sober, and they're now helping others. And that's a testament to this book. I will reference this book a lot. I love the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. I stole this big book. So a little bit of my background really quick, because I want to jam as much as I can in here. So I'm a typical middle-class girl from the suburbs. I grew up in a really great home with 2 parents until I was 12. At 12, my parents got divorced. My mom got remarried, and I transplanted from Nova Scotia to British Columbia. And there my misery started. I felt like I never fit in. I felt I didn't have any friends. I never felt good enough. And I abused anything I could get my hands on, it turns out. I have memories of taking a whole bottle of children's aspirin. Who knows why? But I liked the taste of it. So I ate the whole bottle of children's aspirin. I was introduced to alcohol at 16, and I fell in love. I went to a party with older kids, and I just loved that feeling it gave me. I felt taller. I felt more beautiful. I felt like I was funnier. I felt I was more attractive, and I chased that feeling forever. It completed me. It gave me an identity. I went through my bar star years in my 20s. I didn't have anyone that was close enough to me that I thought would be anyone to say, hey, you got a problem. You're not drinking like other people. Because everybody I surrounded myself with was just like me. And I just chalked it up to being in university and being in my 20s. And this was a phase. And that phase came to end when I was about 28. And I did what every girl's supposed to do. I got a career, a husband, and a house in the suburbs. I threw a couple kids in the backyard. And I thought, that's it. I'm going to move along. My past is behind me. Here I go. Well, turns out that wasn't the case. I became weekend warriors with my husband. We were the house where everyone would come to drink and party. We would have hockey nights, UFC nights, barbecues. There was always alcohol involved. Other substances are part of my story. There was always a party going on at our house. The children were neglected. I'd start dinner at 5 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon. And by 6:30, dinner wouldn't be done, and I'd be half cooked on the backyard drinking my wine. My story took a turn. When I was married, my husband lost his job due to a workplace injury and went on disability. And he fell into deep depression, and his alcoholism kicked up. Because, of course, like seeks like, and I married an alcoholic. But I wasn't an alcoholic. He had the problem. So with his depression and increasing alcoholism, domestic violence became a huge part of my story. And then I had more reasons to self-medicate because I now was being abused. My life was crappy. I was in a really dark place and my mental health was terrible. I had a 24-hour-a-day solution, including prescription drugs, alcohol, and other sorts of things as well to keep me out of self. And eventually I left my husband thinking that there would be my new solution. I was going to get sober and I'm going to leave him and I'm going to be happy. I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to get a dog. I'm going to start running. And don't you know, I'm going to have a new amazing life and I'm not going to need to use all these things anymore, right? Yeah, I see thumbs up. People know that story, right? And well, turns out that's not the case. I went along with me when I left him. And now I just had new reasons, right? Now I'm a single mom who's going to want me. Now I'm working 60 hours a week to try to support myself. Now I'm in a bitter divorce. Now he's breaking his restraining orders and he's being court-ordered to jail. So I always had a reason to get out of myself. And until I found a new solution. I started dating a sober guy I met on online dating site because that could be a good solution. I'm going to date someone. He's going to love me. I'm going to feel better. I've lost my weight at this point. So if he's not drinking and using, I won't drink and use with him. Yep, doesn't work. I found myself going to Chuck E. Cheese on a Sunday afternoon with my kids because they serve wine at Chuck E. Cheese. Who knew? I'm in the bathroom at Chuck E. Cheese doing other substances and then spraying myself with body spray, chewing gum on the way home, out of my mind on a Sunday afternoon from drinking at Chuck E. Cheese. That's where my alcoholism brought me. Chuck E. Cheese. Who knew? So, of course, a guy that's sober typically doesn't date a hot mess like me. He was on his way out. And he relapsed, and he relapsed hard. Harder than I'd ever seen anybody drink or use. And like the good codependent girlfriend I am, I tried to fix him. And he had a support group in Alcoholics Anonymous who rallied around him. And they got him into detox. And that day is my sobriety date, August 4th, 2016. And I stuck and stayed. So what happened was I became the doting girlfriend that would go with him to AA meetings. And at my first AA meeting, I walked in and they asked me to share because there's this odd duck sitting there. And I was like a sore thumb, right? They picked me out and I said, oh, no, not me. I'm here for him. I don't have a problem. He does, right? And pointing fingers, I'm like, look, he's sweating. Like, that's bad. Like, look at his withdrawals. And the lady just rolled her eyes. I'm friends with her today, actually. And she said, yeah, okay, honey. And 15 minutes later, I heard my story. And I thought, this person's talking about me. But no, they were telling their story. And I went, oh, that's it. I'm an alcoholic. And I thought that was my step one. I realized that my life was unmanageable and that I had a problem with drinking. And that was as far as I got for about 2 years. I was in some social suburban step groups and we would all kumbaya on Thursday nights. I liken it to women who put down the wine and Tupperware catalogs and they picked up a big book and tea. And we would just sit around and kumbaya and feel good. And I had great fellowship. But what I didn't have was the solution of Alcoholics Anonymous. And God had a plan for me. And around 2 years sober, I was trying to help a friend. And I brought him into Vancouver on a Saturday night because I told him, I said, you don't see anybody that's got what you want. There's no guys in our neighborhood that have what you want. I'm going to take you into Vancouver and you're going to give you a taste of different recovery. He never got that taste, but I did. And I got introduced to a solution-based meeting where people talked about God and the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and they were on fire. They were like Ebby. That boy was on fire, right? And I was like, what are these people doing? This is not what I know. And so I kept coming back. And I kept talking differently at my local meetings. And this was about a 35-minute drive from my house. And all of a sudden, every Saturday night, I had a car full of women, and we were going into this meeting in Vancouver. And we kept getting the solution vicariously through them speaking at the podium. And then Thanksgiving Day 2018, my separated husband, died of a fentanyl overdose. My children lost their dad that day. And it was 5 a.m. when I got the call, and I didn't know what to do. My heart was beating out of my chest, and I was lost. So I did what everyone had told me to do for the previous 2.5 years of my sobriety. I called my sponsor. But that morning, she didn't answer. She doesn't answer her phone before 8 a.m. until she's done her morning prayer and meditation. But this was 5 a.m. and I was in a crisis and I didn't know what to do. But I had gotten another phone number from one of those girls from that Vancouver meeting. And I called her because I didn't know what else to do. All I knew is if you're in crisis, you pick up the phone and you call someone. And this girl answered the phone. I told her what was happening, and she said 2 sentences to me. She brought me to God in those 2 sentences. It eased my heart, and I intuitively knew how to handle that situation. Just from her 2 sentences, she connected me to God, and I knew what to do. I got off the phone and I went about my day with a lightness in my heart. The worst day of my life. And I called her that night. I said, I don't know what it is that you did this morning, but I want more. And so for the 2 weeks after my husband had passed away and we were preparing for my children's dad's funeral, I did a full set of steps through the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous with this woman. The worst 2 years of my life, I set aside an hour to 2 hours a day to go to her house. It may have been me escaping from my own misery at that time, but it was just the perfect timing. And she walked me through the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous word by word, step by step. And I had a spiritual experience and my life changed and a whole new world opened up. And it was as a result of these 31 pages that I'm going to talk about now. You know, I had already realized that I was an alcoholic, step 1. We've probably discussed that already this morning, but I had never heard about the allergy or the malady. And I identified as soon as she explained it. I'm like, yep, I have that. That explained why I drank the way I drank every time I drank from I was 16 years old. I was a blackout drinker from 16, from that first experience. And it just was that aha moment. And it solidified my step 1. Step 2, well, I believed that this would work for me because I saw what she had done for me that day, connecting me to God, and it eased my heart. And I saw so many people at that meeting that I believed it was possible. So I got to step 3. And I looked at myself and my life honestly, and I realized that I was trying to run the show. I really emanated that page where it says that we're like the actor trying to control the play. I was like, yeah, if you had only done this, this would have been better for me. If you would have only done that, this would have been better for me. I had that aha moment because I was in a corporate finance type job, and at my place of employment, you know, it depended on who you talk to. They'd be like, oh, Kimberly, she's amazing. I love her. And then 2 seconds later, someone go, Kim, really? You love her? She's the biggest bitch here. It depended what I wanted from you, what version of me you got, you know? And if you weren't going my way, you got an increased version of what I was. So if you were going along with my plan, you got the sweet, amazing Kim who would give you the shirt off her back. But if you were somehow blocking me, you got that vindictive, manipulative, evil Kim. And I had those 2 personalities and they were strong. And that's right in the book. You know, it says here, he may be kind, considerate, patient, generous, even modest and self-sacrifice. That was me. But I was also mean, egotistical, selfish, and dishonest. It all depended on who you were and what role you played in my life. And I went to extremes with that. And I was like, wow. And then it was explained to me how that had caused all these people to react differently to me. Because, you know me, I was a repeat victim. There are a million repeat offenders out there. I was a repeat victim. Life kept happening to me. People kept doing things to me. Why? I couldn't figure it out. I had such high regard for myself. Why are all these people out to get me? They weren't. I was stepping on their toes and they were retaliating. And it just made sense. It was like a light bulb went off in my head. So I did that step 3. I made a decision. That's all it was. For the previous 2 years, I was like so torn up and twisted inside about step 3. How do I turn my life over? How do I just put someone else in charge? No, Kim. You just make a decision to try. You've got the rest of your life to figure it out. Just, are you willing to do the next right thing? Are you willing to live in kindness and love? Are you willing to do this work? Vigorously do this work? Not a check mark set of steps like I had done before? And I went, yeah, I'm willing to do that. I wanted what they had so bad, I was willing to do it. That morning when my husband had passed away, I had a taste of that serenity. The worst moment of my life, and I found peace inside, I wanted more. Call it my addict mind, but it felt good. I wanted some more. So I was willing. So I made that decision and I embarked on this journey, which brought me to step 4. One of my biggest pet peeves in life is people that get up to share at a podium or in a meeting and they talk negatively about step 4. All I want to do is put my hand up and say, you aren't doing it right. Because if you do step 4 right, you're going to talk about how amazing it is, how life-changing it is. If you are sitting there going, oh, step 4, find someone new to take you through it because they're not showing it to you right. Because step 4 is this amazing transformative step. Like Tony Robbins and his Walk on Fire ain't got nothing on step 4. And I was able to write it out. And I had done it wrong all the times before, and I hated it. Until I was shown what it actually said in the big book. They said, column 1, write down people with whom you're angry. What? You mean I'm not writing a resentment list? No, Kim, you're writing down who you're angry with. That's it. Don't rip off the scar. Don't do open heart surgery. Just write down who you're angry with. I can do that. Okay. She's like, 10 for every year of your life. I was 41 at the time. I'm like, what? She's like, just kidding. She's like, the top 5 in each category will show you the best glimpse, but just write down everything you can think of. I'm like, okay. And then she says, column 2, just in point form, write down why you're angry. And I was like, pardon? She's like, point form. And I have since enhanced that to, we don't write a victim impact statement. You know the story. You've been living it in your head and perfecting that story for the past 20 years. Trust me, you know what they did. Just in point form. Cheated, lied, gossip, stole, whatever. I'm like, okay. So I did it. I wrote down who I was angry and what I was angry for. And then what she did was completely different. Is she actually gave me the instructions out of the book on column 3. You see, because everybody else would just say, write out what your injuries were. And I would write long, glorified paragraphs about how I was hurt and twisting all the corners and going down hallways I didn't need to. There's actually just 5 choices. It was quite simple. Did it hurt your self-esteem? Did it hurt your security, financial, emotional, physical? There's a whole bunch of options. Your ambitions, goals, and dreams in life. Your personal relationships, so any relationship with another person, or your sexual relations. Not necessarily people you're having sex with, just people you're involved with intimately. And I'm like, huh? I didn't have to think. It's a yes or no question. Did it affect your self-esteem? Yes or no? Yes, write it down. No, move on. I was like, wow. I wasn't sitting in a pile of shit. I was able to go through those first 3 columns with a little bit of levity. Who I'm angry with, why I'm angry, how I got hurt. That's pretty simple. There was no more victim impact statement. Then we got to column 4. And all the times I had done it before, they're like, find your part. And how I like to explain it now is if I'm trying to find my part, you still have a part. And the book tells me that I'm to forget you entirely because you're a sick person. That is the key to mastering these resentments I have. I missed that part for 2.5 years. 4 sets of steps, 2 sponsors. The key to mastering the resentment against that column 1 is to understand that these are sick people and to pray for them. I asked the question, can I pray out loud to their face? Apparently the answer is no. You need to pray for them quietly in your own head. But I had to ask because some people really pissed me off. So I said, okay, I can put out of mind the wrongs others have done because they're sick people. Question was asked in one of my big book studies in the past little bit because we are just finishing up this portion of the book. And they said, so all these people are sick? Yeah, they are. And their symptoms are in column 2, right? If you want to know if they're sick, well, is there anything in column 2? Yep, those are their symptoms. So they're sick, diagnosed, easy peasy, and that's all I needed to do. I prayed for them. There's a really great prayer on page 552. I very rarely reference the back of the book, but I love any references to prayer. The more ideas you can get to pray, the better. But you do have to do this work in order for your prayers to get anywhere. So I got to column 4 and I stopped looking for my part. Because if I was looking for my part, I was giving them a part and it would just messed up my mind. And I did what the book tells me to do. I looked for my fault, my blame, and my wrong. And I asked myself, what could I have done differently? My biggest one is all my relationships end poorly and I get abused and treated like garbage. Well, what's the number one thing I do wrong? I stay too long. Well, shit. I never thought of that. You mean I should have just left? Oh, that's easy. But I never would have thought of that. If I was looking for my part, I never would have thought, well, maybe I should have just left. That's what I did wrong. So I'm able to look for my fault, my blame, and my wrong. And if I get stuck, I just say, what could I have done differently? My typical is I paint red flags green, I ignore red flags, and I stay too long. Because most of my troubles comes from relationships. And so I was able to look at that and I was able to see where it came from. I was selfish. I was dishonest. I was self-seeking and I was frightened. And I was able to tie those kind of together. So when I'm being dishonest, I do this. When I'm being selfish, I do this. When I'm in fear, I do this. And I had one of those aha moments. And something that this woman who took me through does differently that I do as well is we have a 5th column. And the 5th column is fear. And we actually write out the fears for each of our resentments from column 1. And it opened my world. And we started to draw the evil and corroding thread which made up my life. And that, my friends, blew my mind. And I have an example because I'm a visual kind of girl. I wrote out my fears. And it says, my fears of abandonment, rejection, not being loved, being alone, judgment. And I was like, it was repeating over and over and over again. And then we read it from the other way and we tied it together with that evil and corroding thread. And it sounded like this. My fear of abandonment, rejection, not being loved, being alone, and judgment causes me to be selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, and afraid. And when I am selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, and afraid, I lie, I steal, I yell, I cheat, I ignore red flags, I paint red flags green, I stay too long, which hurts my self-esteem, security, ambitions, personal and sex relations. Well, aw, crap, I just own my own stuff. There was no way to tie it to them anymore. There is no way to complete that sentence and blame it on them. Well, shoot. Now what? I went, oh my word, it's all my fault. Every single thing that ever happened to me started with my fear. I set that ball rolling. Well, that's what my book says. And I just went, whoa, fear has controlled my life. And everything I feared ended up happening when I did all of the things that I did in column 4, right? Like, oh, I'm scared he's going to leave me, so I'm going to do all this stuff. And oh, crap, he left me. You know, and I had some childhood trauma, and it looks a little bit different. Because in things that happen to me when I'm a child, I don't have fault, blame, and wrong. But when I'm an adult, I get to look at it different. So those cases are a lot different than all of the things that happen as an adult that I set the ball rolling. And I have tools to deal with that. And we handle those on individual bases because trauma is trauma, and sometimes other people make choices that affect us. But then I react to those things wasn't how I should have reacted. And I would react to those things out of fear. I'm not going to tell anyone about my sexual abuse because I'm afraid they're going to judge me. I'm afraid they're going to reject me. I'm afraid I'm not going to be good enough because of that. So the way I handled it was based on fear. But the actual situation, I had no fault and blame in that. But in previous steps, I was told to find my part, which was misdirected. So now what was I to do? I had this list. I have all these fears. Well, I found 2 chapters in the book that had been hidden for 2.5 years. Because what happens is they put new stuff in this book all the time. I think I've read this book 200 times and they keep putting new words and things in. I don't know how they do it. It's pretty cool. Like my book's falling apart. So how they get these things in there and make them look like they're up to date, I don't know. But they threw in these 2 little paragraphs at the top of page 76. And they're about step 6 and 7. So what I did was I went to my sponsor and I talked about everything in my story. I didn't read my victim impact statement. I talked about all my fears, all of my experiences, all of the things in my story that I had hidden from people out of shame and guilt and fear. And she directed me to step 6 and 7. And she said, yeah, me too. I had all that stuff happen to me. I have all of those same fears. And I went, really? She goes, oh yeah. And to this day, I have not yet been stumped in a step 5. I had one girl say, oh, I can't do my step 5 because you're not going to talk to me ever again if I tell you the things that I did. And I looked her dead in the eye and I said, honey, if you got something that good, I'm going to like you more. Because there's nothing that anyone's ever told me that hasn't been oh, me too. You know, the 92-year-old grandma in the rocking chair in one of my big book studies who raised her hand and talked about being a hooker wanted for murder. I was thrilled. I was like, that's the best moment ever. Like this woman was like grandma, like TV grandma in a rocking chair. And I was like, yes, that's awesome. There's nothing that anyone could tell me that I would be shocked by. There's nothing that anyone that could tell me, and to this day, that I haven't probably experienced in some way, shape, or form. And so I moved on to step 6 and 7. And I've had to become willing to let these fears go. I thought these fears protected me. I thought these fears saved me from being hurt. But when I looked at this paper, I saw these fears hurt me over and over and over again. So I was willing to let them go. I wasn't sure what was going to happen on the other side because it's a whole new world. But I saw other people that seemed pretty happy and pretty free. I couldn't figure out why there's only 2 little tiny chapters or paragraphs about it. Because I think these are kind of big deals, praying these fears away, praying away that conduct. And I did. For 8 months after I did my step 5, every morning and every night, I did the step 3 and step 7 prayer. I changed the step 7 prayer for each single character defect and fear individually. So at that time, I had 40 something fears. I said that prayer 40 something times. I prayed away the fear individually because I also work with a mindset coach because, we all like our self-help, don't we? I had so many self-help books that were gathering dust, but I was trying to train myself. Like in elementary school, you repeat your times tables over and over and over again. Why? So you have immediate recollection. So if I pray my 43 fears away individually, when I'm doing my step 10, I know what my fears are. Because I'm not saying a general prayer saying, please remove my fears. I'm saying, please remove my fear of rejection. Please remove my fear of abandonment. Please remove my fear of not being good enough. Please remove my fear of not being loved. Because I'm memorizing those fears so I can watch for them. And I'm also telling my subconscious mind that they stand in the way of my usefulness to God and my fellows. Because my subconscious mind is a powerful tool. It has told me for 42 years that these fears protected me. So I have to tell my subconscious brain that these fears don't protect me. And I did it every day for 8 months. And most of my fear is gone. New ones come up. Funny thing about being human, new fears come up. So I'm 43, I'm single, and I'm dating. Dating when you're 43, single, and in Alcoholics Anonymous is fun. I no longer have fear of rejection, fear of not being good enough, fear of abandonment, and fear of never being loved. Now I have this new fear of losing my independence. So I have to pray that away. And that's just part of being human. Fear will pop up and we have to deal with it, but we have the tools now. So I was praying and I was praying and I was praying and I was praying. And I was watching these fears come up and I was praying my little heart out. And things started to shift. And I moved into steps 8 and 9. I was not willing to make amends. I was like, there is no way, no how. I couldn't even remember a lot of the amends that I needed to make. But I saw how amazing these other people's lives were, and I had made that decision to go to any lengths to have that. I have had those tastes of amazing things, so I was hungry. So I got willing, and I made out my amends list, and I keep adding names to it because as the layers go and as my clarity goes, people pop up or I see something that reminds me and I'm like, oh, I owe that person an amends. I should try to find them. So that's an ever evolving list. And I just started praying for the willingness to make those amends. And out of the blue, I would just make them. I wasn't scripted. I wasn't forceful. I wasn't chasing them. Because that wasn't on God's timing. I hear a lot of people, they're like, how free do you want to be? Get your amends done. And they skip step 8. Step 8 is very important. We need to pray for the willingness to make these amends or the amends aren't going to go off well. If you rush right to step 9 because you want to be free, that's your time, not God's time. So I kept praying and I kept being willing to make amends to gain my freedom. And they started popping up. One that I really didn't want to do because I didn't know how to do it was to my mom. And just one day I was on the phone with her talking about nothing. Those Saturday afternoon phone calls with your mom, talking about gardening, cooking, whatever. Just all of a sudden, it came out. It wasn't scripted. It wasn't planned. I didn't hunt her down. I didn't corner her. It just felt like the time. And I just said it. I am not a fan of the pre-written text messages from your sponsor. I got one once. It was, hey, you know how this goes. I'm in a step group and I got to do my step 9. I'm like, delete. Do it from your heart. Pray for the willingness. and it's going to go off wonderfully. Then there's those financial amends. Then there's those amends to the universe. There's a million amends. I owe debt to the universe, to God. And I'm really creative. So I have this penchant for office supplies. In my corporate career, I stole a lot of office supplies. I really like stealing office supplies back in the day. Some of those companies are no longer in business, not because I stole all their office supplies, but just because of the life. So every year when I take my kids back to school shopping at Staples, I do a large donation to Backpack Buddies. I return office supplies to the universe. I was driving one day and I saw a guy that looked like my old drug dealer. And I was like, dang, I owe him $100. And I called my sponsor and I'm like, freebie, don't gotta make that one. She's like, yeah, you do. You're gonna donate $100 to a recovery charity. And I'm like, oh, all right, fine. You know, I always remember my mom's birthday, Mother's Day, Christmas. I have to have my mother's Christmas presents to her house early because I was always late. Small debts to the universe. My financial amends, I went into my bank. I made an appointment with the financial advisor in the bank and I said, hey, here's the deal. For the last 20 years, I've been an alcoholic addict. I was married to an alcoholic addict. I was in the middle of a divorce and he died and I have a lot of crap. And she printed out my credit report and she sat down with me and we made a plan. I am now 4 years and 9 months sober and I have paid off all my financial amends that I am aware of. My credit report has zeros and paid beside everyone. I have a file in my drawer. I have a credit card. I own my own business with a business account and a commercial lease. I have a savings account and investments now. But I was almost $150,000 in debt about a year and a half ago. I stopped getting my nails done. I stopped getting my fake eyelashes done. I stopped driving a fancy car and I drove what we called the Humble Mobile. I stopped eating out. I stopped paying to get my hair done. I actually signed up on a Facebook group to be a hair model for hair school because I needed to pay my financial amends before I paid for myself. And now you can see I got my nails done. I no longer like fake lashes because I don't need them anymore. I have a nice car again, which is through my company and I write it off legally. I don't skip through hoops anymore because I've made my financial amends. And the reason it was so important to me, and I was going to skip that step. I was like, financial amends, well, 7 years, it's all gone. I'm fine. But I read a Facebook post from a lady, mutual friend, not someone I owed money to. And she did a Facebook post about a tenant skipping out on her rent. She had an investment property and her tenant skipped out and left the place damaged. And she wrote a heartfelt Facebook post on how it affected her, how she's not able to pay for her son's sports because this tenant skipped out. And reading that post made it real on all of the financial debts I owed. I'm like, that's me. I owe people money. Who am I to be getting my nails done? Who am I to be driving a nice car? So I humbled myself and I paid off my financial amends. And it felt really good. It felt really good the day I was calling the creditor. So you know how the credit companies call you every day and they're like, yeah, you owe us money. Yeah, you owe us money. There was a credit agency that I had on my credit report and I was trying to pay them and I couldn't get a call back. And I was calling them every day going, I owe you money. I just want to pay it. I want this off my credit. Like I am on a mission to pay my financial amends. And this guy got so annoyed with me. He just deleted the debt. And he's like, we can't find your file, ma'am. I'm like, but it's on my credit report and I need to fix it. He's like, ma'am, we don't have a file on you. I'm like, then fix it. I'm like, I'm calling him every day because I needed that zero to make my heart whole. So I remain willing today. If a memory comes up, I deal with it promptly. If I bump into someone that I maybe didn't treat properly, I make a heartfelt amends. I don't use the word sorry. I hate that word. The book actually tells us not to use it. The book tells us to use the word regret. And I say, hey, Betty Sue, I really regret the way I treated you when we were friends. I really regret the harm I may have done to you. I regret gossiping about you. And I really regret the way our friendship ended. I'm truly sorry. Using that word regret has so much impact. I bump into somebody at the grocery store, I say sorry. Sorry is a cheap, dirty word. It's overused. So I use that word regret because I do. I regret the choices I made and the way I acted. And I want someone to know that heartfelt. Which brings me along to my favorite step. I did a ladies' big book study last week, and I think I must have dropped about 100 F-bombs talking about step 10 because I got so excited talking about step 10. Step 10 is where I live. Step 10 is the reason my life is so amazing, besides God, because he's just hardwired into me at this point. But what I was told forever was to do a nightly inventory, because it's on page 86. But what I wasn't explained is that is just a suggestion to get us started. But we are meant to grow along spiritual lines and learn our own way of doing things. And me, I'm a complete asshole. So what happens to me in a typical day is I might forget to set my alarm. So I wake up in the morning late and I have an appointment at 11 o'clock. So I'm in a rush and I forget to pray and meditate. And I get out of bed and I'm like, oh, my alarm didn't go off. I got to get ready. Oh, the kids aren't up. Oh my God. Yelling at my kids to get up and get ready. And then I stub my toe and I'm even more upset. Now my morning's off to the wrong start. I'm screaming at my kids to get ready, yelling at them, throwing them in the car, rushing to McDonald's to go through the drive-thru to get them something for lunch. And don't you know, I'm yelling at that poor girl at McDonald's and she screws up my order, so I yell at her some more. I'm so frustrated and I'm so rushed. I get to school, and if you haven't done school drop off, let me tell you, they don't even come close to depicting it in the movies. And I start bitching and honking at the moms because they don't know how to do school drop off in the morning, and I'm just a big nightmare. So then I get on the highway and I'm driving to my appointment and some ding dong cuts me off, and I'm driving like a maniac and I'm honking my horn and flipping them the bird. And then I get to the receptionist's office of the doctor and she tells me they're running behind, and I lip her off. What's the point of having an appointment if you're running late and I just rushed to get here? And I'm not nice to her. So then I leave and I'm back on the highway driving like a jerk. I'm back at school to pick up the kids and I'm a jerk. And I get home and my partner's left his muddy work boots at the front door and stuff on the counter for making a sandwich, and I flip my lid. You know, he's the big dick, and I lose my mind and have a big blow up. I slam doors and whatever. So then I sit down at the end of my day to do my nightly inventory. What do you think I'm writing down? I'm writing down how pissed I am at that stupid boyfriend of mine for leaving his muddy boots, and I'm not really looking at everything else throughout the day. So for me, I'm the type of alcoholic who needs to do step 10 as I go along. I need to stop myself throughout the day when I'm being selfish, dishonest, in resentment, or in fear. Because if I do that, my day switches real quick. So instead of being in a rush and yelling and screaming in the morning, I go, whoa, back the bus up. This doesn't feel good. And I call the doctor's office and I say, hey, I woke up late. I'm running late. And she would have said to me, no problem. The little old lady from down the street cut her finger. We're doing stitches, so our office is backed up. Take your time. It's no rush. My whole day shifted right then and there with that phone call because I stopped myself. Then if I'm at McDonald's and I'm starting to get impatient again, I can wait, it's okay. Doctor's running late. You're not in a rush. It's going to be okay. I'm able to check myself throughout the day and stop my day from going off the rails. And it works. My days are peaceful and serene and without conflict. I have moments, I'm very human. Driving gets me done. I don't do school drop-off anymore because it's too aggravating. My kids walk to school now. I have a solution. You guys can walk. You got your own keys. See ya. I avoid things that cause me resentment. I find new ways to go about my day. And life is serene. Life is peaceful. I have one resentment. I can't get rid of it right now. I am in a legal battle with my ex-husband's estate, fighting for my children against someone who's very sick and is trying to take all the money away. So what do? I pray for her each and every day because until the court settles the lawsuit, I can't get away from that resentment. But I know she's sick. I don't retaliate. I don't argue. I do the next right thing. I actually pay a large sum of money to a lawyer to say, you do this because it's not healthy for me to be involved. These are the tools that I get from my step 10. And I get to go through days and they're lovely. And there's like the birds are chirping and it's just the best thing ever. I am now one of those people that can sit on a deck and just listen to the birds chirp and enjoy a sunny afternoon. My mind's not racing. I'm not plotting. I'm not manipulating. I'm not planning. It's just peaceful. And step 11, prayer and meditation. I am in a conscious contact with God at all times. For me, I am not a down on my knees praying kind of girl. That has never worked for me. I have a very conscious relationship with my higher power where I've told him what I need. He's like a trucker. My version of God is a trucker. He's very abrupt with me. He's very loud and he sends me very clear, concise signs because I need that. My favorite prayer I learned was, God, I am so stupid. Please make it simple for me. And the one I use the most is, God, help me. That simple prayer, God, help me. It calms me down. It brings him back in and it helps me. I'll tell you my favorite story about prayer because I didn't know how prayer works. And I was praying and nothing was happening. And someone said, Kim, you need to pray for a clear, concise answer. I was a few years sober and I was dating someone with long-term sobriety and he had kidney stones. So he was smoking medicinal marijuana for his kidney stones because he had been a heroin addict and couldn't do opioid drugs. But there was something about it that just wasn't sitting right here. And I was like, oh, I don't know. And people are like, well, pray about it. I'm like, it's not working. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. So a friend said, pray for a clear, concise sign. I'm like, I don't see these signs like you people. I don't know what you're talking about. She's like, just pray for a clear, concise sign. So for 2 days, I prayed for a clear, concise sign. I'm like, okay, fine. And I'm like, I don't see these signs. Like, I don't understand. I'm like, I'm in the abyss with prayer. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. But I tried it. I was like, okay, God, please send me a clear, concise sign. And God loves to show off. He loves to show off that he can, like, do these things. So I was sitting there and I was, like, working away on my laptop at this guy's house. And I heard this noise on the back deck. It was like, I was like, what is that noise? So I'll never forget it. I leaned back in my chair and I looked out the door. He was smoking his medicinal marijuana in a 2-foot bong, lighting it with a blowtorch. That, my friends, is a clear and concise sign. There is no doubt about it. That is not medicinal marijuana. I packed up my laptop and I walked out the door and I called my girlfriend. I'm like, holy crap, it works. And she's like, what? I'm like, I got a clear sign. She's like, no, you didn't. I'm like, I did. I got the biggest, clearest sign. I need Mack truck signs. I don't do small, ambiguous signs. I didn't know how to listen yet. So he needed to send me a big Mack-sized truck sign, and that was a blowtorch. Who lights a bong with a blowtorch? Like, there's nothing bigger than that. And I went, wow, prayer works. So I knew I had to learn how to pray. My favorite prayer is in the book 3 times, strength and direction. Just asking God for strength and direction. God is an internal GPS. He's hardwired to me. You know, when you're in your car and you don't take the turn that Siri tells you to take, hopefully I didn't set off everybody's Siri by saying Siri, and it says, and it tells you to recorrect your course. That's that feeling I get. That's God telling me you need to correct your course. And I trust that feeling now. And I ask for strength and direction. I ask him for clear signs. I ask him to remove my fears all day, every day. And like I said, my favorite prayer is so simple as God help me. My morning routine is a lot different than the book. And I tell people, find what works for you and work the crap out of it. Because it's personal. This is your personal God. My girlfriend Helen, she always says, you can't talk to God like that. I'm like, that's how me and God talk. I'm like, you can't talk to your God like that because that's your God. My God, this is how we communicate. It's good. It's working really good. So I'm going to keep working it. But I wake up in the morning and I have a Bill W plant that I have an 8th generation clipping, and I have a beautiful crystal cross that I got really cheap at Winners, and it's on my windowsill. And I always sleep with my window open. So I wake up in the morning to birds chirping. Every day I look over a green ravine, and it is like I wake up with God every morning. I listen to the birds chirping. I look out my window, regardless if it's sunny or raining. I see my Bill W plant and I see my crystal cross, and I just feel his presence every morning. I don't get on my knees and pray. I do my God questions. Kim, are you willing to pray and meditate and keep me close throughout the day? Yes, God, I am. Kim, are you willing to make any and all amends as you go throughout your day today? Yes, God, I am. Kim, are you going to help others today? Yes, God, I am. He goes, enjoy your daily reprieve. And that's how I start my day. And then I'll think of what I have to do during the day. Usually it involves service. I am an elected official in my area. And so I do typically have a lot of service commitments and speaking. I do a big book study 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays is my ladies' big book study, and I see a lot of them here. I love you guys all so much. And then Tuesdays and Thursdays, I do a co-ed big book study. Saturdays is my home group. And Sunday mornings, I usually go to church and have appointments with my longtime sponsees. We do check-ins on Sunday mornings. So I do service every day of the week. And I'll tell you, it keeps me really sober. My life today looks nothing like my life looked 4 years and 9 months ago. My sober anniversary is in 3 months and 2 days. I will be 5 years sober. And I'm telling you right now, I never in a million years thought I would get 5 years sober. 5 years sober is that milestone for me. I was an accounting analyst for about 20 years, and I watched statistics. A lot of 1-year cakes, a handful of 2-year cakes, the odd 3-year cakes. Rarely do you see a 4-year cake. And once in a while, you get to see a 5-year cake. I can't wait to hit that milestone. And then what happens after that milestone is you usually don't see a lot of 6, 7, 8s, and 9s. What you see is a 10-year cake. And what you hear each and every time a 10-year cake comes around is one of 2 things. The person shares that they're highly involved in service and they love Alcoholics Anonymous, or they say they've stepped away from the program and they're coming to celebrate 10 years and their life is unmanageable and they're in shitters. And all those people say at 5 years sober, they had everything they ever wanted and they settled into their life and they stepped away from Alcoholics Anonymous. So guess what I'm doing at 5 years sober? I'm committing my life to service. And I'm staying in the middle of the herd because I got this amazing sober life as a result of the work I've done in this room and my connection to God. And I am not giving it up. I will share my chair with you. I will let you sit on my lap if you need to, but I am not giving up my seat in Alcoholics Anonymous. You cannot pry it away from me. My life today, my two beautiful children are doing amazing. You wouldn't even know that both their parents were alcoholic addicts and that their dad died of a fentanyl overdose. My daughter Summer loves coming to meetings with me, and she's a beacon of light. My son, well, he's 14 and he likes girls, so that's that. All of their friends follow me on social media, and they see me sharing my experience, strength, and hope, and being loud with my recovery. Because if I'm not loud with my recovery, who's going to find Alcoholics Anonymous? I don't shout from the rooftops that I'm a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, but I tell you dang straight, everybody knows I'm sober. And as a result, I get to help a lot of people. I now have retired from accounting, and I have two home-based businesses that are somewhat recovery-based and offer hope and keep the conversation going, which gives me a lot of free time to be of service. I get to paddleboard and hike every afternoon because I find solace in nature, and I'm living a life wilder than my biggest dreams. But the biggest gift I've ever gotten from Alcoholics Anonymous is the peace and serenity in my heart and in my brain. I just have calmness. I have serenity. And I know peace. I know how to handle situations that people are baffled by. And I just walk through life in a positive, happy vibe. And I never had that. And it's a beacon of light for so many people. I'm that weirdo that walks down the street with a big smile on her face, and people are like, what's she so happy about? I'm like, ask me, I'll tell you. It's because God is right there with me, and I'm sober. And all I want to do is share it. So I thank you all so much for bringing me in. I can't believe I jammed in 3 through 11 in an hour. But it was just such a pleasure to be here on a Sunday morning. Don't even know what day it is. Thanks, Kelly. Co-host needs to unmute Kelly. Can someone unmute Kelly? She's having a problem. There you go.
Hey, there we are. Can you hear me okay? I hope so. Oh my gosh. Kimberly, I cannot say enough. I knew not exactly, but in a roundabout way, I knew exactly what you were going to say.